This is session 2 of God is King. When God established the Hebrew people as his people, he was to be their king. When they were slaves in Egypt, he gave them that promise. He said that he would rescue them and set them free. They would be his people and he would be their God. And that's exactly what he did as he led them out of Egypt, rescued them, took them into the promised land, drove out all the other nations before him. He then set up, first of all Moses as the leader, and then Joshua, and then when they were in the promised land, Samuel the prophet became the great leader who would tell the people what it was that God wanted of them. But as they were well settled in the promised land, and Samuel was the prophet, they said to him, "You're old, and your sons do not follow your ways. Now appoint a king to lead us, such as all the other nations have." And Samuel wasn't happy about that, and he talked to God about it. And God said, "Look, it's not you they've rejected. They've rejected me as their king. They've done this from the day I brought them out of Egypt until this day, forsaking me and serving other gods." And so God said to Moses, "Then listen to what they're saying and appoint a king, but," he said this, "warn them solemnly and let them know what the king who will reign over them will claim as his rights." So Samuel did. He went on to explain to the people that if they had a king, then he would take their sons and daughters to be his servants, he would take the best land, and so on. But they didn't listen. And so God appointed Saul as their king. Now the people had had a king who was generous, who was just, who'd done amazing things bringing them out of Egypt. But they rejected him. They asked for a human king so they could be like the other nations around them. In other words, they rejected the perfect for the imperfect. And we see how Saul was not only an imperfect king, but he failed to be the actual go-between between God and the people that he was meant to be. His great failure came when he ignored God's instructions when fighting the Amalekites. And that is the point at which God took away his blessing as king, although Saul did remain as king in his own strength for some time afterwards. His final disobedience was when he consulted a medium instead of God, and just soon after he was killed in battle. First Chronicles 10:13 says, "Saul died because he was unfaithful to the Lord. He did not keep the word of the Lord and even consulted a medium for guidance." So Saul had failed miserably as a king. A human replacement is no replacement for God. Now we know that God chose David to be the next king, and David was a man who loved God, was obedient to God, but even David failed when he fell for temptation over Bathsheba and had her husband killed. A human king can never replace God, but the need for a king is vital for God's people. When David wanted to build a temple for God, God said, "No, that's not your task," but he made him this promise: "Your house and your kingdom will endure forever before me. Your throne will be established forever." God's people must have a king.